Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to learning the Baal HaSulam's Matan Torah with commentary by Rabbi Avraham Morechai Gottlieb, who I'll be referring to as the Rebbe Shlita. I have yet to mention in the prior classes that Shlita, in essence, is a short title added to someone's name that means may they live long. It's out of respect for the individual, all the more so Rabbi Gottlieb. So, a brief summary up until now. We've learned that the main mitzvah of the Torah is V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. This is the all-encompassing mitzvah of the Torah, and it is the umbrella of all of its details, intricacies, subtleties, every minor detail is bringing us to the state of higher consciousness, of being able to love the other as ourselves. We spoke about the notion of Torah and mitzvot and how it brings us to that point. We spoke a little bit about the paticha lechochmat HaKabbalah and the teaching that came out of there being that merit is why we were given the Torah and mitzvot, so that we could merit. Merit in Hebrew is zechut. Zechut is from the language of hizdochachut, which means refinement. So I would say that our greatest merit can be to refine ourselves and raise our nature from loving and self-serving to that of giving, selflessness, altruism, which is the Creator's quality, because the Creator is only giving. And we spoke a little bit about the notion of rising above our understanding and how our understanding is intrinsically flawed, because for the time being, as we work on ourselves, as we refine ourselves, we are flawed. Therefore, our understanding is as well. So when we're given the opportunity to refine ourselves and do things that we don't necessarily understand and actually goes against our logic and reason, that resistance actually is a refinement and actually does help us grow in our selflessness and love and care for the other. So we are taught, and so we practice. We also spoke about Hillel and the aspiring convert who came to him and said to teach him the entire Torah while he stands on one leg. We learned that the legs are abstract concepts about shifting consciousness. One leg is afflictions, the other leg is pleasure, meaning afflictions and suffering push us from one state to the other because we want to make a change, we want to get out of our suffering. And then pleasure pulls us towards that reality. We do things in order to manifest the reality that we want. And we spoke about how our inner work is relative, because we're all beautiful, unique, shining diamonds in the Creator's expansive garden. We're diamonds, we're trees. There's many beautiful mushals, examples, metaphors for what we are. But each individual is unique, and we're not to compare ourselves to anyone or anything. And we can only grow together, but on our own paths, which is all one. And we spoke about my favorite thing so far, which is Torah de Rishut Hayachid, which is the interpretation of the Torah that interprets all of the Torah as a personal story about ourselves, a personal story about the journey of our soul, our elevation of consciousness. Whether we go from land to land, from eretz to eretz, being from the language of ratzon, meaning changing our desires from will to will, from state to state of consciousness. Or whether we're speaking about characters like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov Avinu, our forefathers, Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron Cohen, so on and so forth. These are archetypes of ourselves. These are aspects within ourselves They can be general, and they can even be much more personal once we get into the learning and discover the deep intricacies of the entire Torah being about you. And we also spoke about how we want to change things, but the divine document's already been written. We want to reform things, we want to reconstruct, we want to make a change and make things suited to ourselves, based on our understanding and our reasoning. But the truth is that the blueprint has already been made, and the program is already running, and it was made by a perfect being. So we're not in a position to try to change that which has been explicitly told to us is unchangeable. We cannot add, we cannot subtract. And we'll get into it a little bit in this lesson, but we spoke about it in the last one. Of course, there's flexibility in the Jewish world. The Torah has halacha. There's many people who are outside the bounds of Torah and mitzvot who might imagine that it's very black and white. And it's not true. When someone has a personal posek, a person who makes decisions on Jewish law, they will get an answer that's akin to them, that's specifically catered to them. Why? Because everything is relative. And yes, there's overarching laws that are the same for all, but there's many leniencies and details that go into someone's avodas Hashem, someone's work for God, their divine service. So let's get into number 3. For those who have the book, it's on page 60, and it starts with the bullet point: how can I be obligated to fulfill the needs of every single person? Baal HaSulam begins: before we delve into the depth of the matter, we need to reflect on the commandment itself. When we are commanded, and love your fellow as yourself, the expression as yourself implies that you are to love your fellow to the same degree that you love yourself, and not to any degree less than that whatsoever. This implies that you are obligated to be on constant watch to fulfill the needs of every single person. At the very least, each one of the nation of Israel, to no less degree than you are alert to fulfill your own needs. This is a completely impossible task, for not many are able in their workday to fulfill their own needs. So how can you obligate anyone to fulfill the wishes of the entire nation? Nor is it acceptable to suggest that the Torah speaks by way of exaggeration. For the Torah warns us, quote, do not add and do not subtract, etc. From Deuteronomy, or Devarim 13:1. And by this, it tells us that its words and principles are stated with complete precision. The Rebbe Shlita says on the spot, Baal HaSulam here wants to rule out the claim that love is dependent only on the heart and not a practical matter. To make a statement for a moment, we spoke a lot about this in the last class, actually. So I'd like to go into the matters of consciousness and thought, and also how they turn into action, because thoughts beget action. That's the root of our actions. We'll get into it. The Rebbe Shlita continues. He states that just as we do for ourselves whatever gives us pleasure, so we must do for the other. No one can come and say that the mitzvah of the Torah is only love in the heart and is not related to action. It must be expressed in action by taking care of the other's needs. After making this point, then he goes on to ask, how is it possible to do this in reality? My comment to that is, anything is possible with the Creator, of course. And seemingly, yes, this is an impossible task. But the Matan Torah will eventually get into it. It goes into detail on how such a thing can be accomplished. in its details and its subtleties. And that's it for this small section. This is section 3. Just clarifying that we need to act and not just to think. But I really want to hone in on the thoughts themselves because it's so important. Thoughts beget actions. In Kabbalah, we talk about cause and effect. And the cause is like the father that begets the son. Avraham begets Yitzchak. Chesed, which is Avraham's characteristic, loving kindness, begets Gevura, discipline and judgment. Strength. Avraham was known to be so loving and so kind that Yishmael, his son, had wicked ways. And it was as a result, as we understand it, from Abraham's all-encompassing love and seemingly lack of gevura, lack of strength and discipline to say what's right and what to do and when to do it. So Yitzchak came in as a result of that in order to balance it out and say, no, there needs to be more strictness, more discipline, more strength. But even that was to another extreme, so to speak, which is why Yaakov was the balance of both, and he is Tiferes, harmony, beauty, Torah, truth. Those are his qualities. And all the qualities I just mentioned are aspects within ourselves, as all the spheros are representing the tree of life, which is representing our qualities, which are made in the image of the Creator's qualities. The Rebbe Shlita says, page 0 of Inner Work, right before the book starts, quote, "The key to everything is attaching our thoughts to God. We can attain the ability to do this by being in the presence of people who are attached to God and by learning the holy books written by these people." The Baal HaSulam said something very similar. In Hebrew we say, Sofrim v'Sfarim. Maybe it's the other way around. Sfarim v'Sofrim. Either way, we connect to the holy books and the holy people who wrote the books. In truth, when we connect to the books, we're connecting to the holy people by definition. Because when we read something, we're absorbing the consciousness of the text. We're actually fusing in some way, enveloping our soul and clothing our soul with aspects of the author. So how much more so when we read the Torah are we enveloping our soul and enclothing our soul with the garments of the Creator himself, as we understand the Creator and the Torah and Klal Yisrael are one. But that needs a lot of explanation and understanding. I'm not going to get into that now. But I wanted to share that quote to emphasize the power of thoughts, the power of consciousness. So I want to take some time right now to speak a little bit about science and its connection to consciousness today, and how it's very much in line with our deep Masorah, our tradition. Dr. Michio Kaku, who is a Japanese-American physicist, he's a theoretical physicist, a quantum physicist. He's one of the fathers of the current superstring theory. Some call him the Albert Einstein of this generation. He said in a recent interview, I'm not sure if it was for a TV series or for a movie or something like this, but it's on YouTube. You can probably look up Michio Kaku, Kabbalah, or Zohar, something like this. And it's taken out of context, but the statement holds by itself. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, "What we are learning and understanding today about the nature of reality through the lens of quantum physics was known by the sages of the Zohar 2,000 years ago." This man is seemingly not connected to Torah, not Jewish from my understanding, nor religious. Could be wrong, could be very religious, very good man, faithful to the Creator and his ways. But that's besides the point. One of the fathers of superstring theory, the Albert Einstein of this generation, as many say, is saying such a bold statement, which is in essence saying that our sages, the Jewish tradition, knows what's going on. They had it down. Now, what is he referring to exactly? I'm not sure. It could be the notion that the earth is a globe and that the earth revolves around the sun. But I think more so, it's talking about consciousness. Because quantum physics tells us and shares insights that consciousness is the matrix of all reality. Max Planck, who is the father of quantum physics, I'm paraphrasing, said something along the lines of, reality is a projection. It's a matrix that is coming from a conscious mind. So the quantum model assumes a creator. It assumes a conscious being that is projecting reality at every moment. That's very in line with Jewish thought. In Judaism, we say that every microsecond, the Creator is willing everything into existence. He's breathing existence into being, so to speak. So, if scientists today are discovering that the sage of the Zohar had it going on, so to speak, then it might be something to investigate. There's also something called the double slit experiment in quantum physics, which is also termed as the measurement problem. There's some very neat videos on YouTube you can look up regarding it. I'll explain it as best as I can, essentially regurgitating what I learned from the video, but I'll do my best. Imagine a wall, and then a blank wall behind it. Then imagine a gun of atoms, a ray gun, so to speak. And it shoots the atoms at the wall. What happens? Exactly what you would think. Nothing. It just hits the wall, right in the middle. Just splat, and that's it. Then you make a double slit. You open up two things in the wall, and you have the same thing in the back. You have another wall in the back. When there's a conscious observer, when there's a camera recording it, let alone people in the room, and they shoot the same ray gun at this wall in the middle, again, nothing happens. Like when there was no slit. It just crashes into the middle. And that's it. Take away the cameras, you take away the people. When there's no conscious observer, there's a different reality. When they go back to see the result of the experiment, I assume they put the gun on a timer. They see on the back wall, in perfect symmetry, remnants of the atoms. So the scientists could only imagine and presume what had happened. Perhaps the atom crashed into the wall and somehow went through it and then spread. Perhaps more plausible, they think that the atom, as it goes through the middle, or into the middle, it splits into, goes around the two slits, collides with itself, and then splatters back in perfect symmetry along the wall. The details of the experiment aren't so important, but it's to paint the picture that the fact that there's a conscious observer changed physical reality. There was a difference in the laws of nature based on whether or not someone was watching or something was watching, which is mind-boggling. How much more so can we imagine that we have the power to change and elevate reality to a great, positive, loving degree when we are involved in Torah and mitzvot through consciousness, through intention, knowing what we're doing while we're doing it. And if we don't have the desire to do it altruistically and to give, at least we can desire to desire. That's also very respectable. I want to want. That's a beautiful thing, because it's not so obvious that we can just become righteous people overnight and do things for the sake of heaven. Not plausible, but we can want to want. We can want to want to want. It goes back many layers. So back to the teaching, we talk about how we need to put things into action in regards to loving the other. So I'd like to share some basic spiritual work that we can put into practice. That was explained by the Baal HaSulam. And this is our custom here with Ashlag. And the Rebbe Shlita writes this in his commentary to Matan Torah. But I'll bring it here. It's in another section. But begin by choosing a group of at least 3 or 4 friends. 1. Think every day about the good aspects of the friends. 2. Speak with the friends in the way that one would speak with very important people. And 3. Do things for the benefit and happiness of the friends. And the Rebbe Shlita says, this is practical spiritual work on the levels of thought, speech, and action that can be done every day. The Baal HaSulam suggests that groups meet once a week, each time in a different member's home, to discuss the importance of the group, the spiritual work of loving others, and practical ways to develop love and cooperation between the friends. It is important to choose from the group people who are serious about doing this, and to begin with people whom we feel a heart connection. We begin to develop from here, ends the Rebbe Shlita on this notion. So, the experiment in quantum physics tells us our consciousness changes reality. Now we're given steps to, at the very least, think good thoughts about the other, which actually, even scientifically, we can imagine, sends waves, positive frequencies into reality that bring it up. It reminds me of an interesting experiment done with plants. The plants are spoken to and told things of loving nature. The plants grow and they respond very well. And when they're given negative comments, things of hate, fear, the frequency of the plant lowers and it dies, or its growth is stunted. How much more so to think well and to speak well to other people who you can imagine being souls can elevate humanity in such a strong and beautiful way. Some other quotes by the Rebbe Shlita regarding thoughts and consciousness. When we make an effort to go in the direction of giving, an impression is made in our consciousness that elevates us in the direction of giving. When we go in the direction of our desire to receive, then an impression is made in our consciousness affecting us in that way. There is also a collective consciousness of humanity that is affected telepathically by every person's inner state. Wow! We are all interconnected. We are all one soul. And we're all interconnected telepathically. It's pretty pseudoscientific, if you ask me. But there are psychologists even, like Carl Jung, who talk about the collective unconscious. It's not such a new idea, but it's a Kabbalistic idea. And it's actually quite foundational. And I think it helps us and paints the picture of arvut, which we've spoken about in the past lesson. Mutual guarantee. We're all in the same boat. We're actually all one. And we need to treat each other as such. And when we do something that's good, something that's giving, so too, more blessing and goodness flows. And so too, God forbid, in the opposite way. The spiritual work of loving other people is not focused on people's external aspects, but rather on the divine aspect, the aspect of God within each person. And I think this links very well to the original quote that I said about the key to everything is attaching our thoughts to God. If we're thinking well about the other and thinking about the divinity within them and connecting that to the Creator himself and understanding that this is all one big intertwined system, then we're doing amazing things for the world, for ourselves, for that other person. I mean, how often do you hear sending you good thoughts, sending you positive vibes? People today and this generation actually feel this quality, perhaps unconsciously. They know there's this notion. It's plenty common in the New Age communities, but in Judaism, it's a very real thing to think well about the other. And in essence, to pray for the other. Prayer is thought. Prayer is feeling. Prayer is everything we're talking about. Prayer is an ultimate experience of attempting to flow goodness and light into the world through consciousness. Prayer, in essence, because in Hebrew it's a reflexive term and it means really to self-reflect, to self-critique. Because when we reflect and critique and we see the truth within ourselves, and we have the yearning in our consciousness to grow and to fix and to fill our lacks with the light, the same way we're that one puzzle piece on a giant puzzle of all the different souls. When we're fixed and improved, so too the entire puzzle is improved. The Rebbe Shita also says, any thought that is disconnected from the reality of God is not a good thought. That's difficult. How often are we really thinking about God? Which reminds me of a beautiful idea regarding emunah, faith. I've heard the Rebbe Shlita say that people think emunah is the starting point. I have faith in God, so I'm going to take on the Torah and its mitzvot. I have faith in God, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. They think that's the starting point. But he says an amazing thing. He says it's not the start. It's the goal. The goal is to have emunah. The final goal is to have faith. Because if we can truly love the other as ourselves, that's an expression of faith. We have faith in God, faith in the other person, that if we give our heart and soul and resources to the other people, that we're going to be provided for as well. It takes a lot of faith to reach such a state of consciousness and to exist in that state of being. So emunah is the final goal. People say, I have emunah. Do we? I have an arm. Baruch Hashem. I can say that I have an arm. Do I have emunah? Do I have emunah the same way I have an arm? Am I living every second of my day with awareness of the Creator? Awareness of the goodness of others? I don't have emunah. I might have a thought here and there. I might experience something sometimes, but I don't have emunah. The same way I don't have love for the other. But we're trying. We're here to grow. And the fact that we're alive means that we are destined to achieve such a state, assuming we put in the hard and bittersweet work. But we can only do it together. We cannot do it alone. It's absolutely necessary to have a community, positive environment. As we said, a group of friends that are the same goal. And a spiritual leader. Someone to defer to. Someone to also practice saying, I only understand so much. Let me consult someone that I have faith, I have emunah that understands better than I. So we spoke a lot about consciousness and intention today. And of course, it has to be put into action. But first things first, We have to cultivate the positive thoughts, because thoughts beget action. Tov, good. I guess I'll end with actions speak louder than words. Everyone's heard that before. So may we slowly but surely think well of each other and think good of each other and to grow together, God willing. Okay. Looking forward till next time. Next time we're going to be talking about the notion of servitude, slavery, at least the Jewish slavery, which is very, very different than how most people project their idea of slavery. And the notion of thinking of others as great people, which is also a very important topic, and how to do so. I spoke a little about it on the first lesson, but I digress. I hope those who were a fan of the piano scarf are happy that it's back. It's day by day. It's a good look. I like it. And I love my mom. She gave me this beautiful scarf. Okay. Hitayot, see you later. All the best. Hope you guys had a good Purim, a good Shabbat. And may we merit to refine, to grow, to investigate. All the best.